What's up, Squadron? Aviation has given me a ton of amazing experiences. And more importantly, it's introduced me to a whole new family of friends. Join us tonight because we're cleared direct for some hangar flying. I'm Bryon Dembroski, and this is SuperAero Live. What's up, Av Geeks? It's Wednesday, which can only mean one thing. I'm talking at you way too loud on the levels, and it's time for another episode of SuperAero Live. Got a lot of people in the chat we can see here. Waukesha pilots here, as always. Zach Sherman, Jonathan Christman, Gary Smith, Jason Follas, James Hyatt's here. Lots of Jameses. Red Baron Modeling's here. Marty's here. Dude, the gang is all here. I love that you guys are all chatting in the chat, which is redundant every week. It's so good to see you. Glad that we were able to make it work. As Waukesha pilot mentioned, we had a maybe the first real thunderstorm pop through our area tonight, and I always get a little sketched out that we're going to lose internet right before we start, but it didn't happen. Knock on wood. Really excited to talk to you guys this week about, well, let me just show you what we're going to talk about, and then we're going to introduce our guests. So this is what we got to get pumped about. I mean, look at that. I can't do that. I was out flying earlier this week. I can't do that. Let's introduce our guest here, everybody. Look, it's Doug Jackson from the Husky National STOL competition. Doug.
Hi, guys. How are y'all?
Thanks for joining me tonight. And full disclosure, we're going to be hanging out a ton next week.
We are.
Hold on to your butts, man.
Coming on board.
No, I'm excited. So just to catch everyone up, so National STOL, Doug and his team have invited me down to Sun and Fun next week to help tell the National STOL story. So I don't know. We're going to see what happens. It's going to be really exciting. I mean, Sun and Fun is in flux, right? I think. Well, they don't think it's in flux, but I think we're all kind of waiting to see how the event goes. And on top of that, really excited to see how National STOL goes down there. So, but before we get into National STOL, Doug, I think everyone just needs maybe an intro to you, because you're the man with the plan. How did you get started? What's your Doug aviation origin story?
Oh gosh, I started flying back in 1981 when I was in college. Like everybody else, scrounged up some money and took a few flying lessons, and it kind of all started from there. We as life sometimes goes, I solo, but then had to stop for, almost 15 years. And in the early 90s, I bought a plane, finished up my private, bought a little Cessna, then a Bonanza, and then another Bonanza. And I've had probably 3 Bonanzas. And then about, 4, 5, 6 years ago, I got maybe 8 years ago, I guess I got my first tail dragger, Gillis-Satavra. And then about 3 years ago, started hanging out with some guys. Good friend of mine you'll meet, Brian Shirley, kind of got me interested in this backcountry stuff a little bit. And then I bought something with big tires on it.
Okay.
Everybody probably knows what the Cessna Cub is. Clint Busnich builds those. He hates it when I call it that. It's Badlands Traveler is what they call it. It's basically a Super Cub with a Cessna wing on it. And I love that airplane. And so that kind of got me started in the really getting off airport. Started hanging out with some of these local guys around here. And my background the last 5 or 6 years has been off-road racing. And So some of these guys knew that I'd been around that off-road racing. They said, well, you've been to these events. What if we don't have a STOL competition in North Texas anymore? What if you put on one? You know how to do these events. And so I thought, well, how hard can it be? Well, I was wrong there. It was very hard, but we put on our first event last spring, which was Lone Star STOL in March. And in the process, Tom Flannery, who had helped me with my charity with Operation Airdrop that I'd founded a few years ago, along with some friends, Tom helped me build a website, and I quickly realized that he was going to be the brains behind this thing, and so quickly Tom became one of my I made Tom a partner in this venture, and we decided to take this thing to the next level, which is create a National STOL series. And of course, COVID happened right in the middle of our first event. That's actually the week that it hit, believe it or not. And we barely pulled that. I think we'd been 7 days later, we would not have had that event last spring. So pretty much we didn't get to do anything last year after that. We had big plans, but it just wasn't going to happen. Oshkosh got canceled. Sun and Fun got canceled. I mean, it's just, everything just snowballed. And then got a call from some guys down at Sun and Fun, said, hey, how would you like to come down and help us put on an event in December? And so we've never done an off-season event other than the big Sun and Fun, and we'd like to kind of showcase this thing for us and showcase what you guys do. So we decided that would be a good way to kick off our 2021 series, was to have an event down there in December. We're not necessarily running on a calendar year. So we decided to kick off there, and I think it was a phenomenal success. I don't know exactly how many people we had come out there and watch. It was in the thousands, I know. Had quite a few competitors, 50 or so came down, had a blast. The guys, of course, perfect weather. Sun and Fun was awesome to work with. And they invited us back. So here we're going to be back here next week doing strictly demos. This is not a full-blown competition, if you will. But a lot of the familiar faces that people have seen, if they follow STOL, will be there. Some of the bigger names in STOL. Of course, everybody knows Steve Henry. Steve will be there with his amazing Highlander. Just a whole ton of guys that if you follow STOL, you'll know these names when you see them. And they're going to put on a great show for people. We'll have about 15 or 20 guys rotating through the week. And every afternoon after their show, roughly 5, 6 o'clock, I think, somewhere at 5:30, we'll go out there for about an hour and just put on a great show.
Yeah, and I'm showing a little bit of footage from, I think this is from the first kind of Sun and Fun thing that you were just mentioning. And I guess maybe for folks that, and I think Steve Henry was at the front end of that little B-roll package. But for folks who don't necessarily know about STOL, I mean, we talked a lot about, we've had various STOL pilots and backcountry pilots on this show before, but to talk a little bit, maybe you could talk a little bit about, in terms of the competition. I mean, people can tell from the B-roll, really heavy on the tail draggers. Although, I remember seeing at Sun and Fun in December, there was like an air cam on floats or something like that. Like there's a lot of people bringing different aircraft in, but generally it's tail draggers. I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about how when people are watching this footage here, like how does the competition structured? Because that might help people understand what we're getting at here.
Well, let's just back up to how it all started. Everybody knows what an Alaskan bush pilot is. Those guys make their living, and that's not just Alaska, but it seems to always kind of generically go that way. Any of the Canadian backcountry guys, Alaskan backcountry guys, I mean, this even works up into the Pacific Northwest. There's places where, but particularly in Canada and Alaska, where you just can't get there if you don't have an airplane. And that's where these bush pilots came in, delivering supplies to some of these communities, hauling in hunters, acting as an air ambulance, whatever the case may be. And these were the best of the best. They did this for a living. They still do it today for a living. And as every profession goes, at night around a campfire or maybe at your local pub, these guys have a drink and they start talking about who the best is. And it's just human nature. Well, by gosh, let's just go out there and see who the best is. I know I can land shorter and take off shorter than you can. Nah, you can't. Well, here we go. That progressed into competitions, as it always does. Everybody's heard of Valdez, and that's the grandfather of STOL competitions, and that's where it all came from. And so that started migrating down this way as backcountry aviation kind of took off, and it's today the fastest growing segment of aviation. just getting out there with your airplane, and whether it be landing on a sandbar or a gravel strip somewhere, grass strip somewhere, throwing out your tent, whether it's Utah or Idaho, great places in Arkansas, Oklahoma. We've got some pretty good places here in Texas now we go to. And so STOL, even though it's a competition, and the competition is fairly simple, we're trying to get people to see what they can do with their airplanes. And we encourage everyone to come out, watch what we do, because what we're doing will make anyone a better pilot. There's no great skill involved in landing short and taking off short. It's just a matter of knowing what you're doing and knowing your airplane. Any airplane can do it. We've got 172s, we've got 182s competing. As you said, we have an air cam, but then you have your purpose-built bush planes, if you will. And then you've got these really exotic planes like you see Steve Henry flying and some of these other guys. And they get out there and really show you what an airplane can do, when flying right on the ragged edge. As far as the STOL competition itself, it's pretty simple. We've got a start line, which you can see in some of your B-roll there. And we line you up there with the axle of your main tire. Doesn't matter to us whether it's there's Steve taking off. It doesn't matter to us whether it's a trike or a tail wheel. We go by the main axle. So you see there's John Young right there, and they pull up to the line. We center that axle on the start line, and then we measure their takeoff from the tire. When we see that tire break the ground, that's your takeoff distance. And then you come back around and you land, and you have to be past that line or it's a scratch or a DQ. And then we measure your landing, same distance, same way from the center of that line to the center of that axle. Your score is a composite of those two numbers. So just for simplicity's sake, let's say you have a 100-foot takeoff and a 150-foot landing, then your score is 250. And we give you approximately 2 to 3 attempts. You can't mix or match. So your score has to be the combination that you flew at that particular flight, that takeoff and that landing, not mix and match them. And then we have different classes. We won't have that many classes down there for it's Sun and Fun for the demo. But in our competitions, there's 5 classes, starting from the largest, which is your heavy touring. That's your 182, your 185s. There's Warren Gobler there in his beautiful 185. And then it goes down to your light touring. That's your 172s, your 170s. There's other planes that would fit in there, but it escapes me right now. And then you go to your bush class. That's your Huskies, which Huskies are National STOL sponsor this year for this whole series. You get your Carbon Cubs. You've got your American Legend Cubs. Legend Cubs, another big sponsor of ours. That's all your certified, quote unquote, bush planes. And then from there, you move down into your what's called experimental bush, and that's your uncertified Carbon Cubs, your experimental. And I misspoke there. The American Legend will be in this class here, the experimental bush. Most of your Super Cubs will be in what we call the bush class. That's your true Alaska work planes, if you will. And then the 5th class, that's kind of what everybody comes to see, because that's where you see the super short landings. And that's what Steve Henry and guys like Dan Reynolds and some of these guys compete in. And those are how some of the guys know how. Hal's one of our guys that flies we call him the lawnmower. But anyway, that light sport or light experimental bush is those guys are usually they're empty weights down in it could be as low as 500 pounds, but typically they'll be in the 700 to 800 pound range. Of course, Steve's airplane, I think, is somewhere in the 800 pound range, and he's pushing out almost 300 horsepower. That's why you see these 3 to 5, 6 foot takeoffs that he has. That thing is just a rocket, and those are really fun to watch. But that's kind of it in a nutshell. It's not very high tech, if you will, although a lot of the planes are high tech. But the competition itself is pretty low tech. we're basically just measuring the takeoff and landing. What we brought to the sport that's never been done before is we're bringing some tech in, the live stream for one. That's the big one. But we're also bringing some laser measurements devices in, so we can better get a really accurate down to the inch measurement on the takeoffs and landings, as well as a laser beam that they have to not break on the landing, so we can see if they scratch or not. So we're trying to push the sport onto that next level. At the same time, we're trying to get more and more people involved and having these events around the country and just showing people what they can do and what they can go out and have fun with.
Yeah, I think so. So thank you for that rundown. I mean, I think what is interesting to me when I first heard about it was, I think a lot of folks have maybe the spot landing competition at their local airport, right? And that sure. This feels like taking that and the safety that's built into that, all of the kind of like things that every pilot should be striving for, and just adding an extra layer on top of that. So instead of it just being like, we'll land on this mark, which is what we do at our local airport, right? Just land at or beyond this line, and where you touch down is your score. You're adding in the stopping distance, the takeoff distance. You're kind of adding some layers. But in the end, it doesn't feel to me that, I mean, I've not competed, right? But it doesn't feel that unapproachable to me, right? It feels very relatable. No,
it's not. It's exactly what you just said. It's basically a spot landing. We just measure how long it takes you to stop. And then the takeoff is pretty simple. You line up on there, and when you feel like that airplane will fly, you pop in some flaps and yank back on the stick and hope you timed it just right. If you got it just right, you'll get some unbelievable takeoffs. And then just kind of push the nose over and let the thing accelerate. And, I am not an instructor, but I do a lot of instructing per se, showing people how to land on sandbars and how to do what we do. And one of the things that I see, and I fly for a living now, but one of the things I see every day is people that think I'm going to add 5 or 10 knots to my approach speed for safety. Well, that's the absolute worst thing you can ever do. In my opinion, that's not only unsafe, but it's dangerous to be coming in faster than you need to come in. And so what we teach people in this, or what they'll see in this sport, is people being right on their target airspeed. And they've got to be actually below 1.3 times VSO in this sport, kind of behind the power curve. You don't have to do that on every landing every day. You don't want to do that. But by doing what we do, you become a better pilot. You learn how to feel your airplane. You will never see these guys look at an airspeed indicator. Most of the time, the airspeed indicator is not working because they're simply flying too slow. This is very much flying by feel, by the seat of your pants, knowing when that airplane is going to stall, knowing what that airplane feels like when it's about to stall, knowing what it feels like when it's ready for it to fly. And all that culminates in what you see at one of these competitions. As simple as it is, there's a lot to the flying side of it to be good. Just to get out there and have fun, anybody can do it, though. And the more you do it, the better you get. And eventually you become, one of these superstars.
Well, and I think what's interesting, too, about the way that you have the classes organized is when we were talking about the event in December, I was talking to Tom, your partner, business partner on it, and we're talking about how my 172 tri-gear, that is a totally competitive plane in that class if I know how to fly it. Like, if I know how to, fly it hard, or not hard, but if I know how to, do what you're talking about in terms of managing speeds or doing, having the plane, I flew it earlier this week and it's shimmying a lot. And I was thinking, oh, man, that would not be great. But some of that is speed. Anyway, I'm getting off topic. But I think that's what's interesting about it, too, right, is you've got the Steve Henrys. You've got the guys in the kind of super light, high horsepower aircraft doing the kind of like the magic trick, helicopter takeoffs. But you also have folks in 172s or 170s or 180s, these like larger aircraft that are doing the same kind of thing just within their realm of possibility.
Yeah, yeah, and you can take about any 172 or 182 or a 170 or 185. They're basically all the same airplane. Just depends on whether the little wheels on the front or the back. But you take one of them airplanes and spend a couple, $3,000 or $4,000 and put a Sportsman STOL cuff on it, on the leading edge, maybe some VGs, and all of a sudden you've got a very, very capable STOL airplane that will get down there. If someone goes on our website and looks at some of the scoring from some of our past events, you'll see 182s with a total score in the 300, 350 foot range. That's takeoff and landing combined. And there's nothing really special about those airplanes other than they've got maybe a Sportsman STOL cuff on them. May have a little bit flatter prop, but most of the time it's the prop that they fly every day. And the vast majority of these guys fly their airplane to the competition. They fly it home, and it's their everyday ride. It's not Steve's airplane is pretty much built to compete, and there's several like that. But that doesn't mean you have to have that. You can have a carbon cover, a 182, just about any airplane, a nice Husky, and it doesn't have to be a new airplane. It doesn't have to be anything special. It's just all about you and learning your airplane and learning how to fly it. That's what I really love about this sport, is we've got these new young hot dogs coming out there that are just coming out of the woodwork that amaze me, and that puts the biggest grin on my face to see these young, in some of these cases 16, 20-year-old kids whipping up on these old 60 and 70-year-old guys like me, because that means that aviation is alive and well and going to live to tell this story for a long time.
That's separately. I was not doing anything that cool when I was 16 or even 20 years old.
I wasn't.
So folks in the chat, I wanted to just point are asking some questions. One, the Sky Experimental Aircraft channel here, he says, tell Doug he needs an ultralight class. You kind of almost already have one.
Yeah, we do have we do have that class per se. It's that light experimental class, and we're probably going to end up breaking that into two classes. Because you've got these LSA guys that we're having a lump in there with Steve, and we realize that's not fair, and we're trying to remedy that. So probably in the very near future, we'll split that lower class off into a quote-unquote LSA class or ultralight class, and then have your I don't even know what we'll call it, but the more the exotic planes like Steve's flying, unlimited, if you will. And I think that'll help a lot, because we realize that you can't go out there with a 65 horse Cub, even though it's an LSA, and go compete. You'll have a lot of fun, no doubt, but you're not going to probably be able to compete with Steve with that 300 horsepower. So we want to remedy that. So, we're working on that. It's an evolving sport, and we're an evolving organization.
There's that one. You just made me remember. There's that. Was it Frank Knapp in Lil Cub at Valdez, like 15 feet or something? He can give Steve a run for his money. But that's a highly modified J3. Like, it's a J3, but it's like, is it a J3 anymore?
Yeah, Frank is one of my mentors. Frank and Chris Knapp have been instrumental in helping me. I can call Frank on any given day, and I talk to him, probably twice in the last month. I just talked to him a few days ago, matter of fact, asking his advice on some stuff. And he's a wonderful guy. His wife is a wonderful lady. They spend a lot of their time up in Alaska. They're up there now. And that guy can build an airplane and fly an airplane like nobody's business. I would put, I'd have to say probably in that class of airplanes, probably Frank and Steve and Dan Reynolds are, they're guys, they're a force to be reckoned with, because they all build their own aircraft. They know every little intricacy of what it takes to get the very most out of them airplanes, and it shows when they fly them. Those guys will have combined takeoff and landings of 30 feet, 40 feet, 50 feet. Is crazy. It's really fun to watch those guys, and it's even funner to watch them after you've gotten to know them and know that they're just guys just like us. They're down to earth. They're not pretentious. They'll tell you anything you want to know. They'll tell you all their secrets, and they just want people to have fun, and they want to spread that love of aviation they have around to everyone. It shows. I've absolutely loved getting to know all these guys. They've been wonderful.
So we just kind of answered this, but another one that'll make you laugh popped up. Tango and Juliet, who currently fly a Pete and Pole, said what you really need is an old fogey class for Pete and Poles and hats biplanes. I thought that was
that would be fun. We need that. What we probably need for stuff like that is just an exhibition class, just for guys just to go out there. Maybe they're not really competing, but kind of like the guy that showed up in that air cam.
Right.
He was just out there to have fun. And I don't know if anybody watched it, but the look on that guy's face, I was right out there on the line, and hit the grin on his face every time he landed and it stopped was priceless. And, that kind of tells it all. You don't have to be a winner. You don't have to take home a trophy to be a winner in this sport. You just got to watch their face, just getting out there and having fun. And that's really, that's what it's all about.
That I would invite people after we're done with this stream, if you're looking for more content tonight, to go look up. I'm sure it's, I believe it's on Live Air Show TV still on YouTube. That broadcast of that exhibition or the competition at Sun and Fun, and that air cam. It's like it's really big compared to everything else. So it's just like this huge. It looks like it's not a World War II bomber, but it looks comparatively like a bomber coming in. And then he's got these giant floats, and you're just like, how is it going to stop? And it was on grass, right? So it's like, I don't know. It was insanity, and I thought that was the coolest thing.
And by the way, those links are on our website on nationalstol.com. They can watch all those on there or through Live Air Show TV. And it's fun to watch, and it's really fun to watch the people. Because a lot of times I know in our events, we'll always have first timers, guys that have never done it before. And, after the competition, they'll come up and say, man, that was fun. Never done anything like that. A guy that I just got to meet that I've heard of all my life or heard of in my aviation career is everybody. A lot of you guys have probably heard of Gary Ward, an outstanding air show acrobatic pilot and aerobatic pilot. And Gary come down and competed, and Gary got, I don't know, I can remember it was second or third in his class. And the young man that won his class was like 17 or 18. And I remember Gary saying, and made some comment that, I want you guys to know there's like 70 years difference between the winner and the second place in this class. And, I thought that is pretty dang cool right there, that you got, these old guys coming out there and showing these young guys what they can do. And see, Gary put on a heck of a show. Of course, anybody that can fly a plane like he flies his aerobatic plane, they're going to be a good stick, and he really was. Great guy, too.
Yeah, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most about next week, is to get to know these folks that, I've only, it's kind of like, you only see people on TV or whatever, right? Like seeing these pilots. You're talking about Hal before. Like, what do people say? He's like the most famous man not on the internet or something. Like, there's some joke about him being on all the influencers videos, but he doesn't have his own channel or whatever. I'm looking forward to that, right? To meeting these folks and seeing that side of aviation. Because for me, I mean, I've spent time in Chad always makes fun of me. I try to work it in every show. Did you know I flew J3 Cubs back in the day? Like, I've done some time in that sounds like prison, like in J3s, but since then, I've been like... It is
kind of like being in prison sometime in a J3. So.
It depends what the headwind's doing, right? But like, I have that exposure to it, and that I had good headwind days where I would be maybe competitive on the board back when I was flying J3s. Now in my Cessna, the Cessna lifestyle, right? Like it feels out of reach, and so it'd be cool. It's gonna be cool to watch all these guys and gals doing this and seeing how they're taking these various aircraft and applying that methodology to it, and then just getting to know them, right? I think the camaraderie is obvious even from afar, and so that's gonna be really cool to see too.
Yeah, and you hit on something there that we almost didn't. Is this is not just a guy sport. There's some up and coming young ladies. Jaden Newman, a few people may have heard her name. Jaden will be down there, and she's a force to be reckoned with. She showed people at Arkansas last fall that she's the real deal. She come within, I think it was like 0.3 of a second of beating Steve Henry at that event, and just came out of nowhere. And she's a good stick. She's a fantastic stick, by the way. And we got some more young ladies that flew down there. And I tell you what, that's pretty impressive to know that anybody can come down here and show us their skill, and it's not about your age or your sex or your anything. Some of the best pilots we have, are young, and either guys or girls, and that's pretty cool. I like that. I like that. It's just everybody can come.
So I agree. I agree that is super cool, and I've been blown away again. Going back to I'm trying to put myself in their shoes. Like, what was I doing when I was 16 years old? It wasn't. I wasn't even thinking about airplanes yet, really. But was not doing anything with any sort of responsibility, let alone piloting an aircraft with precise skill. so I don't know. I think it's super cool too, and I think what I was wondering if we could do would be to go to, if you had to tell people what they should expect next week, right? We've got these various classes. We've got kind of the rules. We're going to be at Sun and Fun. If you wanted to maybe break down for someone who's maybe on the fence, why should they walk over and check this out?
Well, for one thing, we're right in the middle of all the experimental and home-built aircraft down there, so they get to see a lot of really cool. You can do things with these experimental aircraft that you just can't do with certified airplanes. That's one reason to come down, because we're right in the middle of that. But the other thing is just to come down there, and like I've already said a couple of times during this show, is that just to come down there and learn that you don't have to have a brand new Husky or a brand new Carbon Cub or a brand new Legend Cub or a brand new anything. It's pretty much a run what you brung sport. And there's a place for you. There's a class for you. And you can go out there and have fun. And you'll learn a lot about your airplane. And you'll learn a lot about your abilities. And every time that you come out there and compete, you're going to get better. And you'll see these guys down there. And I think that hopefully that will inspire some people to go out. And if not compete, at least go out and try landing on a grass strip. Grab your sleeping bag and your tent and go find a really cool place to go camp for the weekend. There's hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands, around the United States of places to go do that. And I think a lot of people just forget that ability is out there. And especially nowadays, with social distancing, what better place to get away from people than out in the middle of nowhere with your airplane, So I think that, and just seeing all the really cool aircraft is the best reason to come down. And then if they want to see a real true competition, go on our website and check out our schedule. And it's kind of evolving right now, but our next true competition will be down in Louisiana here in the middle of June at the Swamp STOL. And they can find links to that on our Facebook page or our website. And come down if you really want to see, what the real deal is. You can come to that.
So, what if I want to well, probably not me, because I'm hoping we'll be busy. But what if I'm in the chat right now and I've got, I see some RV10s in there. I see some Cessna pilots. I see, Bryon from the Experimental Aircraft Channel wants to bring a Legal or something down. I mean, notwithstanding the ultralight thing that we've been joking about, if I fit into a class, which is mainly gross weight, right, determined by gross weight, can anyone enter? How does that work? Like, how can I become a competitor? Is it open, or how does that?
Yeah, and I probably didn't do a very good job explaining the classes a while ago as far as the breakdown goes, but it is broken down by gross weight. And that's what we talk about, the heavy and the light touring and, the light experimental stuff. It's all about your gross weight. It goes from, airplanes with a empty weight of sometimes 3,000 pounds almost, all the way down to planes that weigh, in some of these cases, 500-600 pounds. But if you want to compete, it's really simple. Just go on, pick one of our events and go online and just register. We'll stick you in a class. If you don't know what class you need to be in, we'll help you. We'll work through that. Tom and I do that on a very regular basis, kind of get people lined up in what class they need to be in. And then just go practice. Get you a can of paint, go out to a grass strip somewhere. Doesn't have to be grass, but preferably grass strip. Paint you a line and get you a couple of buddies out there and just have fun. Go out there and start practicing taking off and landing. We do it right here at my grass strip with my neighbor. We'll get out here and grab a couple of cones and some spray paint, make us a line, and we just have a blast. And it's this, at any given weekend somewhere around the country, there's somebody doing this, and these STOL events are popping up literally everywhere. And I think that's so cool, that the sport is, even though it's been around up in Alaska for a long, long time, it's very new in the United States, continental United States. Just the last, I don't know, probably seems like 4 or 5 years, it's become really popular. In just the last 12 months, gosh, I've seen more events pop up than I've ever seen. And you're going to see more of it because it's just something anybody can go do and anybody can go have fun at it.
Do you think that's why it's so popular right now? I was talking to a friend about this recently. Like, we were kicking around ideas for aircraft. For some reason, mainly through this show, I've become really interested in experimentals. I think part of that is just because of the performance per dollar and the things you can do with them and the way you can do crazy performance mods like Steve's doing. Not that I'm like that much of a mechanic yet, right? But do you think that in terms of STOL in particular, is it the accessibility? Is it the fantasy of it in terms of like getting out and landing on a mountaintop? Like, why do you think it's jumping up in popularity so much right now?
I think the biggest thing, and I could be wrong, but I think the biggest thing that's driving this now is the popularity of these new airplanes that are coming out. You've got your new Huskies, you've got your Carbon Cubs, you've got your Legend Cubs, then you've got all these the lighter airplanes, the Highlanders, Super STOLs. All these airplanes are just they're not cheap by any means, but in the aviation world, they're very reachable, if you will. And there's a lot of used ones out there. And of course, then you've got your venerable Super Cub and most of these airplanes are in some way or another kind of a variation of the Super Cub. But these things have just become so popular. And I think that, because if you look at just aircraft sales in general right now, those things that class of airplane is just outselling everything by a factor of, probably 5 or 6. And that tells you a lot about where this sport's going when you see that many new quote unquote STOL capable aircraft coming on the market. So in my opinion, and I think that's what's driving it. And like we said, people are just hungry to get out and see the backcountry or see the grass strips around the country, and this just naturally evolves from that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one of the things there's an island up at the tip of Door County in Wisconsin. It's like I don't know how it's reversed. It's like up here if this is Wisconsin, right? There's a little island up there, and it's only accessible by boat or by aircraft, and they've got a little grass strip, and that's like been since I ever took a flying lesson. It was like, I'm gonna go there, land, be alone, right? Like just be land on this little grass strip, put my tent up, hang out, have a beer. 8 hours later, FAA, chill out, fly home. Okay, some folks have some questions for you in the chat. Waukesha Pilot's wondering about this. He says, do you have to own the plane, or can you compete in a rental?
That's a good question. I think that'd be between you and the guy you're renting it from. I probably would say, just off the cuff, that I would be pretty hesitant to come out there in a rental unless I knew that airplane pretty well. But we certainly don't discriminate. We've got guys borrowing aircraft to compete. But if you're whoever you're renting that airplane from will sign off on it, then by all means, we don't have a problem with it.
Awesome. Well, I hope Waukesha Pilot, if you do it, that you've got a bunch of hours in it. Also, some folks that you probably know that I haven't met yet in the chat. Factory Pilot 117 saying, looking forward to flying with y'all next week. So we'll be down. I don't know if you know who that is.
I don't, but
it's someone who's flying with us.
It's somebody who's going to be flying with us next week.
Jason Schulten. Don't forget the affordable and very capable Zenith.
Oh, yeah. The Zenith is always John Humbert, one of our guys, flies a Zenith, who's a really cool guy. We've got several of those Zeniths that come out there and put on a pretty good show.
Marty, who's a longtime, longtime listener, first-time caller, long-time caller. Marty's saying, sounds like a really fun way to become a very precise pilot. In order to compete, you'd have to really practice some performance flying. And I think that's what you were getting at before, right? Is that this is a way to build your skill set in general.
Mm-hmm. Very much so.
Oh, Factory Pilot is Frank Mann.
Okay.
Hey, Frank.
Hi, Frank.
Flying Stampede has a question for you. Wondering about any flight schools that specialize in STOL training. If people want to get their start and get an instructor, do you have any examples of that, or just is it a Google search away?
Yeah, well, Takeoff is the first one that comes to mind, one of our sponsors, and they've got locations up in the Pacific Northwest, and then just opened one down the hill country. I believe they're in Fredericksburg, and that's one of their specialties, is teaching people how to do this backcountry flying, off airport flying. And then there's a lot of instructors around. We've got a local instructor here, one of my good friends that I fly with on a regular basis, Brett Griffith, and he takes people out and shows them how to land on the sandbars. So there's dedicated schools, but there's also a lot of instructors out there that know what they're doing and can, I think quite a few of our pilots, if I'm not mistaken, are instructors. So they can certainly take you out and show you how to do it.
So come to Sun and Fun and hang out on the crowd line, and then ask for a business card when they walk by.
There you go.
It's interesting. The other thing that I was going to add to that, so I just recently, after a year off of flying due to COVID concerns and stuff like that, got back into the cockpit, got a BFR. And what was interesting to me, and this has actually been something that every instructor has done, but I wonder if it's becoming more relevant, was we spent a lot of time in that slow flight, kind of behind the power curve regime, even in a Cessna, right? Let's make sure we've got a good understanding of how slow we can actually safely fly, which then directly applies to a competition like National STOL, right? In terms of that comfort zone. And you were talking at the top of the hour about, that adding a 5 knots or adding 10 knots for safety thing. And I just, this is 2 weeks ago with my instructor. He's like, all right, let's see how slow you can get it, right? And be comfortable. And it was really interesting to get, the deck angle up and get the power in and kind of hang it there and feel confident, right? Like spending the time and feeling confident there, which then a week later translated to confidence in the pattern, right? Because it's like, well, I don't need to, in a Cessna, I don't need to be going 70 knots or 70. So I know some people come in at 75 knots, right? Like they're like, it's like I can be at 60, it'd be super, super comfortable. I can be at, 55, right? Like there's, depending on your weights and stuff, there's people who could do, and I'm not an instructor, and maybe I'm on the wrong soapbox right now, but like I feel like there's some real tangible benefit to trying to watch what these guys and gals are doing and applying it to your own flying, even if it's just a matter of like, I just saw a 172 do that, so maybe I can do 50% of that and it'll still be just as powerful.
Sure. Yeah. The book says if you go out and install your airplane and you multiply that times 1.3 flaps down, then that's your approach speed, and that's what that applies to almost every aircraft. It applies to the jets that I fly, and as you move into the bigger aircraft like the Citations that I fly, you'll find that I know one of the things that really shocked me when I started flying the jets was for every 1 knot you are above VREF, which is your target approach speed, the Citation will float about 100 feet. So if I add 10 knots, I'm going to float 1,000 feet down that runway. And a lot of times we don't have 1,000 feet of extra runway to be floating on.
Right.
And that same applies right down to your Cessna 172. I don't know what the numbers are on a 172, but I can guarantee you that if you come in 10 knots fast, you're going to pay the price and you're going to float a long ways down that runway.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I don't know. Sorry, I keep coming back to that, but it just feels so relevant to me in terms of why it's important, why these skills. Maybe I'm trying to decode why is this becoming so popular right now, and I think part of that is that it's just so applicable for all of us, right? Not just the Trent Palmers of the world landing on mountaintops on YouTube, right? Like there's something we can all take away from it. There was another question. Oh, this is a good, Factory Pilot says, get good at it at 3,000 feet, then do it at 5 feet.
Exactly.
Probably fair advice.
Yeah, we used to, when I flew radio to helicopters and airplanes, we always said we want to be 3 mistakes high. So we want to have plenty of time to recover if we screw up. And, yeah, by all means, if you're going to go up and practice slow flight, don't do it, at the runway. Go up and get 3,000 or 4,000 feet and get that thing back there and be able to fly. I think everyone should be able to learn how to fly their airplane around at 1 mile an hour, 1 knot above stall speed. I know when I was flying Bonanzas, I had an instructor named Colonel Hank Canterbury, and he was one of the original Thunderbirds, Air Force Thunderbirds. He took me up one day and we flew, I had a B-36 TC, and he made me fly that thing 1 knot over stall speed until my oil temp got so hot that we had to level off for a while. We'd let the oil temp cool and then we'd go do it again. And he said, if you can do that, you're not going to get yourself hurt, because you know what it takes to get out of that situation. And I'd feel that thing go to shake or shudder a little bit. Of course, the stall warning's been going off it never stopped. So you're way past that stall warning horn. And that's the other thing is don't be scared of that stall warning horn. The wings aren't going to fall off when the stall warning horn goes off, if you have one. I don't even have one in my airplane, but that's just telling you that in most airplanes you're getting down on what it is, 10 knots, within 10 knots of stall speed. But learn how to fly that airplane. Go with somebody that knows what they're doing, knows how to recover, and fly that airplane around at 1 mile an hour, 1 knot above stall speed. And then learn how to do some turns like that, and then learn how to land, just slightly over that speed. And you'll be shocked at just how short you can land and just how easy it becomes to hit that target line.
And that's the other thing is I feel like if you have ever done if if you've ever done the spot landing contest at your local airport, the first time, and I have a video I haven't released. I recorded this video of like 5 years back of competing in a spot landing competition, and got second place in the competition. I don't remember what the distance from the line was, and I remember saying that it felt like luck, but I think it felt like luck because I hadn't been doing that type of flying yet, right? So it's like, I don't know, I practiced a bunch and boom, I hit it, right? But like, you can take the luck out of it a little bit, would be good.
You can, yeah.
So we're just about out of time, and this has been awesome. And I know people, guys and gals in the chat, if you have any other, pull the breaker on the stall horn. If you have any questions for Doug before we sign off for the night, get him in real quick. We're gonna do, if it's cool with you, we do a game on the show called Short Final, where I just ask a bunch of kind of like short answer questions in 60 seconds. There's no points. You can't. You've already won. Are you into it? Should we do it?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Someone's saying Harrier STOL Jet Champion. That's me. That's funny. And then similarly, Marty's saying you guys should have a helicopter class. I don't know if that's really...
Yeah, that's kind of cheap.
It feels like maybe only if you do that run-on auto rotation thing they do. All right, anyway. Short final. Here we go. Get the time on the clock. Doug, let's do it. Bam. Okay, first favorite airport you've ever landed at in your career?
Mine.
Okay, we're going to talk about that more in a minute. What about your favorite passenger you've ever had?
My favorite passenger I've ever had? Well, probably the one that stands out the most is the guy I talked about a while ago, Hank Canterbury, just because of the legend he is in aviation. I've had a ton, but he was one of them that really stuck out with me. But I love flying with my wife the most. I love it when we can travel together.
That's awesome. My wife doesn't fly with me much, but we're working on that. What about, you've flown a handful of types, it sounds like. Is there a favorite type that stands out in terms of aircraft?
Gosh, everybody asks me what my favorite airplane is. I said, whichever one I'm sitting in at the time. Probably the most fun I've had in aviation has been with this little Badlands Traveler AK Cessna Cub, just because of what you can do with it. But right now I own 3 airplanes, and I love them all 3. I've got I've got an RV-9, and then I've got a lot of people may be familiar with my STOL 340 that I have. So
there you go. That's very diplomatically put. None of your airplanes will be mad at you tomorrow.
No.
Got to get an RV in the National STOL competition. That would be interesting to see.
Yeah. We've actually had some ask if they can compete, and we said by all means.
That'd be good. That'd be good for sure. Doug, this has been great. I want to make sure there are no other questions in the chat. Here we go. This is interesting. Nicholas Lambert says, my friends and I are trading motocross, skateboarding, and car racing for STOL flying. It actually seems to be less risky and easier on the knees.
Probably is.
That's awesome. Very cool. Well, Doug, I can't thank you enough for being on the show tonight. And separately, I'm really looking forward to meeting you in person next week and seeing this stuff up close and personal all week. Yeah,
it's going to be fun. You've got some big shoes to fill with Jughead not being around. I want to get you guys together. And he's an awesome guy and has a great story. And I'm sure you will have a blast. And just being out there on the flat line is a lot to take in. Yeah, absolutely. And Jughead, for people, guys, go look up Jughead. If you type in Jughead Council. I was going to say, you could probably type in Jughead the pilot. Yeah, just Google John Jughead Council. His story is pretty amazing. He's, as a lot of you probably know, he's the only guy to ever survive a supersonic ejection. So, yeah, there's that. I remember the first time we were on the phone with him, I was just like, "Oh, hey, man!" And I just feel like you're in a whole different league than I am. Like once you've done that, everything else seems simple. He is such a great guy and so down to earth, and he is the consummate competitor when it comes to STOL. Him and Jeff Pohl, which a lot of you guys may know Jeff from he runs Sodbusters, the Sodbuster STOL event, and those two guys go at it, and they're a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, super cool dudes. The chats before we sign off, we almost signed off. Zach Sherman says, "Don't forget to talk about Doug's airport." So I'm assuming you live on an airfield, is what you're.
I do. I live on a little private strip here. For anybody that knows their geography in Texas, I'm about 30 miles northwest of Fort Worth, and about 7 miles south of the little town of Decatur. And my identifier is X-ray Alpha 99. Our little airstrip's called Flatbush, and it's a 2,300-foot grass strip. We got about, I don't know, 10 or 11 homes on it. So very small community out in the middle of the country, but really like it out here.
That's like everyone's dream. It's everyone's dream to live on it. Well, everyone that watches this show anyway, to live on an airport with 3 airplanes in the hangar. Yeah, that's so cool. Okay, there you go, Zach. We got it. We didn't forget it. Just for you, Zach. Doug, thanks so much, man. This has been really awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been fun.
Cool. Well, everyone else, thanks so much for tuning in this week. I hope if you come down to Sun and Fun, hit me up on the social media. I'd love to hang out with you and catch up. Doug and I are still working on the schedule of what we've got to do when, but we'll make time. I'll make time to come say hi. And yeah, thanks again for watching. Next week we'll do some sort of show from Sun and Fun. We're still kind of ironing out what that is going to be, but there will definitely be a show. I say that now. Doug's about to throw a wrench in my schedule. There's definitely going to be a show next week, maybe, from Sun and Fun, probably. How's that? Did that seem fair?
Very diplomatic.
All right, everyone. Have a great rest of your night. We'll see you next week, probably.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for